To make my chocolate chip cookies, we use pretty much the recipe that's on the package. There's a cup of butter or 2 sticks of butter, 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 of a cup of white sugar, packed down the brown sugar, 2 eggs. I don't have any vanilla at the moment, but I don't usually use it anyway. You're gonna use a little bit more than 2 cups of flour. It's gonna be about 2 cups and a little less than 1/4 cup. And then you're gonna make up the difference there with some Quaker Oats. Basically just a handful, enough Quaker Oats to cover the top of the flour. And then we have a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, all the chocolate chips. We had an extra large bag here and I'm using it all up. It's probably about 3 cups of chocolate chips. So one of the differences here is that I use a lot of chocolate chips, extra chocolate chips. So the differences in the recipe are extra chocolate chips and also a little bit less flour and also adding oats. And then we use 2 pans and we just we use parchment paper on those pans. And then we keep reusing the same parchment paper. We can turn it over several times and reuse it. We use the old-fashioned way to cream our butter using a spoon.
Just kind of.
I do have a kitchen mixer, but I don't really like to bring it out and clean it. So you just go ahead and cream it the old-fashioned way using elbow grease.
Yeah.
All right, so this is pretty well creamed, so we're gonna go ahead and add the sugar.
Yep.
Splooch.
And then the brown sugar always comes out in a. There we go.
Satisfying.
That was kind of stale.
That's a good point too. It doesn't matter how stale the brown sugar is, it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not stale, it was just packed really good.
Yeah.
Later. Starting to get a little bit more homogeneous. Do you know what homogeneous means?
No.
All of one kind. Heterogeneous means of several different kinds, so it's still heterogeneous right now. It's going to become homogeneous in a little bit when it becomes like that nice tan colored dough.
Mm-hmm.
You probably could have let the butter sit out a little bit longer. One of the reasons why chocolate chip cookies are not the most impulsive recipe is that you have to let the butter sit out for about an hour for it to really soften up. This was out for about 30 minutes, I would say. So it's gonna take a little bit more work to cream it all together. Okay. So flatten it against the wall.
Okay, so.
And keep turning the bowl around. So a good thing to do at this point is to flatten the pieces against the wall of the bowl. And just keep doing that as you go around. You want to keep going until you don't see any butter chunks in there. The butter chunks will make the cookies pretty flat, so be careful that all of your butter chunks are taken out. See, I see a little chunk of butter right there. See it?
Yeah.
Yes. Kill, kill, kill. All right. I think it's time for the eggs.
Yeah.
If you're not completely sure about your egg skills, go ahead and crack them into a ramekin and add them that way.
Egg.
Oh, yeah. Get the shell out. Oh, gosh. You ever want to add shell to cookies? It's gonna be like every single bite has shell.
I know it's
somehow.
It's gonna somehow break up
Somehow.
into every single cookie.
1,000 huge pieces. Yes.
What? Stop judging me.
All right, add it,
Mm-hmm.
and then wash your hands.
The egg will really break it down and make it easier to mix.
Yeah, it does tend to do that. You want to mix it as well as possible before you add the egg, though.
Squish the yolk.
All right, now we're gonna add the flour. So you have to go bit by bit and sift it through.
What would you do if it wasn't for me?
All right, so with our next bit of flour, we're gonna go ahead and add the flour, and we're going to add our teaspoon of baking powder as well.
Yeah. So what do I
And
do
then
with
also,
these
of
like
course, you
bits?
can push those through with your finger. Okay. And with our next one, we are going to add our teaspoon of salt.
Should we just finish this one?
Sure. You think you'll be able to get it all through?
Yeah.
And now I'm just gonna add, I'm gonna cover basically one surface of this. It's not quite a quarter cup, like an eighth of a cup maybe, with our quick oats.
Quicker.
And of course these won't go through a sifter, but it's about that much. Basically enough to cover the surface of the flour if it was still in the cup. It just adds a really nice texture to the cookies.
Mix.
Do you want me to mix this one? You record?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, it takes patience for this step because at first it seems like it's never going to happen, and then it'll all come together at once.
Like
At one time, all of a sudden you'll say, "Oh,
like magically all the flour will disappear.
right, exactly." You got it almost there, but all that little loose flour, you kind of just have to squish it all together. And of course, this is our last chance to get out all those butter bits and make sure it's truly homogeneous. No big butter bits, no loose flour. I'm gonna really inspect it as we go. And it's pretty easy at this point because it's almost like a solid dough ball at this point. So it's actually really easy to grab and just kind of squish the dough ball against any loose flour and just pick it up. Almost like, I don't know, Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Picking up, newspaper print or something. I don't know if you ever did that when you were a kid.
Newspaper? No, we don't even do anything with newspaper nowadays.
No, that's true. Do you know what a newspaper is?
Yeah, like a newspaper route where like you bike around it. That doesn't even exist anymore.
It doesn't?
No, you can't really make money off of that. There's like zero, like there's one person in this entire neighborhood that I sometimes, not that often, see with a newspaper on there.
Okay, now that's pretty nice. You see there's no loose bits of flour and there's no bits of butter in here either.
All the chocolate chips.
All the chocolate chips, man. Get them all in there.
We gotta, okay, so first step is you gotta be able to see the cookie dough.
So at this point, it's not super important. We'll just make sure there aren't a lot of loose chips. And then when I put the dough balls together to make the actual cookies, I'll make sure that every cookie has plenty of chocolate chips in it. You can see the ratio of dough to chip is pretty high.
Yes.
Gosh. The dough to chip ratio.
Is exquisitely above average.
All right, so that's pretty good. Like I said, I'll just make sure you'll see some bits on the bottom here that are a little bit less chippy. So I'll just make sure if we come across any bits like that, then I'll grab some extra chips and add them in. Okay. Advantage of working with butter that is a little bit harder. I mean, a disadvantage, of course, is that it's harder to manipulate and make into a nice dough. But an advantage is that we can cook it right away. If we started off with very soft butter, our dough would not be as firm, and it would be, we'd actually have to put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes or so before we started baking the cookies. But as it is, we can just use this directly. So if you want to, you can do something like use a tablespoon and scoop up so you have nice uniform pieces every time, or you can just eyeball it. That's usually what I do. Here's our first batch ready to go in. We cook the cookies at 325, and we cook them for just about exactly 10 minutes in this oven. You have to see what your oven will do, but you want your cookies to be pretty pale when you take them out, so you definitely do not want to overcook. It's probably better to undercook than overcook. You'll see that when I put these dough balls on here, I didn't really shape them. I left them kind of random looking, and I did not squish them down either. I also put the bowl back in the fridge. It's important to keep these nice and firm when they are cooked, so we will pull them out of the fridge for the next batch. But we want to keep them nice and firm because otherwise they'll flatten out and become discs as they cook. Okay, our next batch is ready to go in. And this one is just about ready to come out. And you will see that the cookies, honestly, they don't look very done. You can see just a little bit of brown around the side edges. Pull them out. Okay, pop the next ones in. Actually ended up starting the timer a little bit late, so these were probably in for 11 minutes and a little bit overcooked in my opinion. Just that little bit of brown there, a little bit too overcooked. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be okay. Okay, a couple minutes later, and we're just gonna gently switch these over. And I'm going to reuse this baking sheet one more time on this side. I'm going to try to get the spots in between where the cookies were. And then I will turn it over in the next batch and use the back side. Okay, next batch is ready to go in. This is the 10-minute batch over in this side. This is the 11-minute batch over here. They look pretty similar to each other. I would say, yeah, I would say either one would be just fine. Undercooking the cookies a little bit makes them, is one of the aspects that makes it nice and chewy. There's some brown, and that's just not going to be what we want. I think I'm gonna have to switch to, say, 9 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm not sure. Not sure what to do. All right, so this is the almost the last batch going in. We've been refrigerating the bowl in between, but we probably won't this time. Let's take a look. This is a 9-minute batch. Brown spots, brown spots. Last batch here. Oh, I cannot remember if I set it for 10 minutes or 9 minutes. I'm just gonna take them out. It gets to be one of those things when you're making a double batch of cookies, but there's so many batches you just can't remember where you are in the cycle. Plenty done. I mean, in my opinion, a little bit overdone. A little bit of brown there. A little bit of brown.
Delicious.
Okay, friends, that is the last of it. This is the last batch of cookies that came out. These ones are pretty cool. These ones are definitely cooled, and these ones are ready to go into the fridge. So I'm gonna cover all this up. Once these are completely cooled down, I'll pop them all into this container, and I'm gonna keep them in the fridge. I really like my cookies chewy, but I actually don't like them very much straight out of the oven. I prefer them to be cooled first, even though they will be nice and chewy. I like them cold and chewy. It's delicious that way. Definitely the best way to eat these cookies is after they're refrigerated the next day. It's a good combination of salty and sweet, lots and lots of sweet, lots of good bites of chocolate in there. So you sink your teeth into that. The actual texture of the cookie is just a little bit of crunch on the outside and lots of chew in the middle. It's the perfect cookie. It's a perfect chocolate chip cookie.